ขอต้อนรับเข้าสู่ Data ศาสตร์ Podcast เจาะลึกทุกศาสตร์ของ Data ทุกโอกาสและความเป็นไปได้ที่ Data ทำให้คุณได้ โดย True Analytics จาก True Digital Group
สวัสดีค่ะขอต้อนรับเข้าสู่ Data ศาสตร์ Podcast Series ใหม่ล่าสุดจาก True Digital ที่จะพาคุณผู้ฟังไปเจาะลึกทุกศาสตร์ของ Data โดยทีม True Analytics จาก True Digital Group ที่จะมาแชร์ทุกโอกาสทุกความเป็นไปได้ที่ Data เท่านั้นจะทำให้คุณได้ค่ะดิฉันสุชาดาเสรีประยูรจาก True Digital Group รับหน้าที่เป็นโฮสต์สำหรับการพูดคุยในเอพิโซดนี้ค่ะและแน่นอนนะคะในต้นปีแบบนี้เราชวน Expert จาก True Analytics มาอัปเดตกันว่าตลอดทั้งปีนี้เนี่ยจะมีเทรนด์เทคโนโลยีใดเกี่ยวกับ Data ที่จะกลายเป็นไฮไลท์สำหรับปีนี้ในทุกอุตสาหกรรมทั้งไทยแล้วก็ต่างประเทศเลยนะคะซึ่งแน่นอนว่าเรื่องใหญ่ขนาดนี้เราจะชวนใครไปไม่ได้นอกจากโค้ชใหญ่ของเราเองก็คือ Chief Analytics and AI Officer คุณ Pedro Uria Recio นะคะที่จะมาพบกับเราเป็นครั้งที่2แล้วกับใน Podcast Data ศาสตร์ครั้งนี้และครั้งนี้เขาไม่ได้มาคนเดียวค่ะอีกท่านหนึ่งที่หลายๆท่านอาจจะคุ้นหน้าคุ้นตาเคยฟังเสียงของเขาแล้วในเอพิโซด2เรื่อง Building Data Products นะคะมาพูดคุยกับเราเช่นกันค่ะกับคุณทามแมนจิง Head of Analytics Project and Operations นะคะในเอพิโซดนี้ซึ่งจะมาแชร์กันในแง่มุม Expert ว่าเทรนด์ของ Data Analytics และ AI ใน 2023 นี้จะมีอะไรรอเราอยู่บ้างและแน่นอนเรียกว่าเป็นธรรมเนียมกันไปแล้วกับ Data ศาสตร์นะคะที่เอพิโซดแรกของซีซั่นเนี่ยจะมาพร้อมกับคุณเปโดรและมาพร้อมกับการดำเนินรายการเป็นภาษาอังกฤษค่ะเพราะฉะนั้นขออนุญาตสวิตช์เป็นอีกภาษาหนึ่งเพื่อต้อนรับexpert ของเราทั้ง2คนและก็ผู้ฟังในเอพิโซดนี้นะคะ Hello and welcome to Data ศาสตร์ Podcast by True Analytics team from True Digital Group, the podcast that will take you to all the science you need to know about data. And as usual, an expert or two from True Analytics team will join us and share all the possibilities that only data can give you. I'm your host for today, Suchada Seri Prayun from True Digital Group's External Communications. So, with the beginning of the new year, it's time that we take a look at what 2023 has in store for us. And the best person to walk us through all the predictions and trends on data science is no other than our very own Chief Analytics and AI Officer of True Digital Group, Kun Pedro Uria Recio, who he also brought a friend with him for today, who we may have heard from the episode 2 of last year, Building Data Products, Kun Tham Manjing, Head of Analytics Projects and Operations, joining us today on the topic Data Analytics and AI Trends in 2023. And after this episode, we're going to sit back and listen in on what the two experts have for us today. Thank you for joining us again, Kun Pedro and Kun Tham Ka.
Well, Kun Tham, hi, how are you?
Hi, Kun Pedro. Hello, Kun Kwang. And hello to all the listener here.
So we are going to discuss today about some trends in data analytics and artificial intelligence that we are seeing, not only for 2023, but also for the next few years, right? So Kun Tham has prepared 3 trends, and I have prepared other 3 trends. So for me, the first trend that everybody is talking about is very obvious, is generative AI, right? ChatGPT, which is this intelligent language modeling application, this intelligent chat that everybody's using, was launched late last year. And it's an application that, basically it's a chat interface with whom you can have a conversation as if you were having that conversation with a person, right? This is something that is completely going to revolutionize the future of work. It's already doing that. And I would like to talk about some applications. So there are applications in programming, there are applications in marketing, there are applications in administration, in product design, applications in business intelligence. I'm just going to discuss about some of them. People are mainly talking about ChatGPT, but that doesn't mean it is the only generative AI application or the only generative AI startup. Google launched another one that is called Google Bard, and there are many startups in this area. I'm just going to mention a few of them. So in programming, there are huge opportunities in using generative AI because in the same way that this AI is generating language, is generating sentences, it can also create code. Because code, at the end of the day, is nothing else but a language. It's a language that you use to communicate with a computer. Generative AI can be used for a lot of applications in programming and coding. If you subscribe to the paid version of ChatGPT, you will see that there are a number of models that are specialized in coding. Coding or programming is just a language. It's the language that you use to communicate with a computer. So ChatGPT can generate code. It can also provide you suggestions for debugging. It can also write the documentation of the code. There were other applications that have existed before, like GitHub Copilot, which was an application that had some conversions of code, comments to runnable code, some autocomplete for coding, but ChatGPT is taking it to a complete new level. One of the things that I found most cool was some people there are a lot of programmers that go to Stack Overflow in order to find solutions to the problems that they have when they're programming, some pieces of code that they can copy paste. Sometimes those pieces of code are in a language that is not the same language that they are using. Maybe they are writing in Python, and in Stack Overflow, they find a solution to the problem in JavaScript. So ChatGPT can query all these Stack Overflow problems and provide you the code for that particular problem in the language that you are using, right? So it's incredible. Another thing is in marketing. In marketing, well, you can not only generate language, but you can also generate images that can be used in marketing campaigns. You can do that with DALL-E. There are a number of startups that are specializing in this. You can generate video or audio, converting from text into voice with an avatar that is moving the lips according to the language. So in marketing, there are going to be a lot of applications. Same thing for administration when it comes to arranging meetings. Same thing for legal when it comes to reviewing contracts, identifying what are the key clauses of the contracts, identifying what clauses of a new contract are in contradiction with maybe the standard terms that you have in the company. And there are absolutely a lot of things. I'm just going to mention another one, which is querying databases. People before, in order to create a report, you had to contact data scientists, data analysts, tell them what you want. They give you a version of it, that they query the database with SQL. All that is going to change because now with applications like ChatGPT, you're going to be able to query databases just using normal language, like asking a question that you could ask to a person. How much should I budget for billboard marketing next quarter? Or how much my sales have been in this region on these particular dates? So this is a complete revolution. And Kuntam, I don't know if you have something else to mention about ChatGPT. What do you think about this?
No, I think I really agree with you, right? It's actually going to change everything here. But also, right, we actually have to think about the world with generative AI in the future, right? It's had a lot of upside, but we have to think about the next downside that will come with it, right? We're talking about the fact that a lot of people can fake image or voice, right? They can actually use it in fraud as well. So this is what we really need to be aware of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can start to see it already these days.
Well, Kuntam, if you want, we go to the second trend that
Sure.
you have prepared.
Yeah, sure. For the trend number 2, I want to talk about data clean rooms. So actually, data clean rooms has been a concept that has been around for some time. For example, Google Ad Data Hub, which is a concept of the take on data clean room from Google, has been launched in 2017, even before GDPR. But now everybody talk about it because, well, first of all, right, stricter privacy law are now in place everywhere, right? Not just GDPR in Europe. Even here in Thailand, we have PDPA kicking in last year. And the second reason is because of unclear future of third-party data sharing via cookies. Talking what about the data clean room is, right? Data clean room is, well, as the name suggests, it's a clean room for data. It allows different parties to share data while maintaining anonymization of their personal identifiable information, which I would use PAI here for short, as well as any governance rule that any participants in the data clean room come up on, right? So they agree on the rules so that people who share the data work under the same governance, right? So in most cases, the data owners here upload their first-party data to the data clean room. The user data that has been shared, if it contains PAI, it needs to be made sure that it will be anonymized. So the PAI will not be exposed, but in some ways still be able to be cross-referenced for the purpose of that data clean room. To give you an example, right, for marketing, in the context of marketing, if you upload your first-party data, it should be able to be enriched by your partner's data, right? It could be used as a seed for targeting the right audience. You can still measure the campaign performance and also analyze those audience. Of course, with data clean room, right? There are also downside, especially comparing to what is the standard these days, which is third-party cookies. If we talk about interoperability, when you talk about you do for example, if you in marketing, if you doing data clean room with Google and Facebook, then of course the performance and everything need to be managed separately, right? It's very difficult to compare both, right? It's difficult to share data across. It's also very difficult to actually trying to operate two platforms at the same time. If you actually work on more than two, it's of course it's going to be multiplier of that, right? The second part is actually with data clean room, we have to work with more aggregate level of analytics as opposed to individual user data inside, right? Because that the whole purpose of data clean room anyway, to actually anonymize all the PAI. That is my brief talk on data clean room here.
Very interesting, Kuntam. So I wanted to add a few things about the implications of data clean rooms, right? So data clean rooms, as you said, is a database that you can give access to a third party. That third party can be a client, a business partner, and all the data in that database is safe from a cybersecurity perspective, and it's also, in most cases, anonymized, right? And this is very interesting because there is a very much growing trend of collaboration between enterprises, which is increasing the need for these organizations to share data, to share models, to share insights with each other, right? So one application could be a supplier that is sharing supply chain information with a supermarket, right? So that they together optimize the whole supply chain. Typically, from a business point of view, when you give access to data as a service, as enabled by a data clean room, typically the way you would charge is on a subscription base, and customers will pay for a package of services or for specific services. But typically, the business models that are enabled here are on a subscription based. And Kuntam also mentioned some pitfalls of clean data rooms, but I'm going to mention one more, which is the increased risk of piracy and leaks of sensitive data, right? There are ways, obviously, to protect the data from being copied away from the data clean room into another database, the database of your client, the database of your partner. There are ways of preventing that, but the possibility of leaking really exists, right? Something else you would like to add, Kuntam, or maybe we go to the next trend?
Thank you for adding, Kun Pedro. I think we can go to the next trend.
Very good. So the next trend is somehow related to data clean rooms. Data clean rooms, as I said, they enable data as a service. But in the third trend, I'm going to talk about data as a product. So what is data as a product? Well, it's thinking of the data dashboards and databases and solutions that you build in your data science department, thinking of that as a product. And these will be products whose primary objective is to use this data to facilitate an end goal, right? I'm going to give you a number of examples. It could be, for example, a company dashboard to visualize KPIs. It could be, for example, a data warehouse. It could be, for example, a list of recommended locations to open a new store or to open an ATM. It could be things such a new feature that is very much data-driven on the app of your company. It could be algorithms. It could be any kind of deliverable of an analytics team. The difference here is that rather than looking at those deliverables as projects, a project that you are working on for a while and then finally you finish the project and it's done, you look at it as a product. That means that you have a product owner. That means that you have a product life cycle. That means that you have quality assurance. That means that you have a product roadmap to improve that data product over time. It's a different way of looking at data. Companies that are winners in data analytics look at their data deliverables as products, not as projects, or even worse, as ad hoc, which is what used to be done some years ago, right? So the characteristics of these data products are the following ones, right? These data products have to be discoverable. So it means that users have to be able to find those data products. These data products also have to be accessible. They need to have an interface. They need to have a way for the user to use it. That interface can be an API, can be a visualization, can be different web elements, but there has to be a way to discover it and also to access it. Number 3 will be, it has to be addressable, right? Number 4, it has to be self-describing and interoperable. That means that when a user discovers the service, that user will find it easy to understand what the service is about and can connect that service to other services and create other data products that are using data from multiple sources, right? And then obviously it has to be trustworthy and secure. And the way data analytics departments or the way companies are already working with data products is by using normal product management and product development techniques such as design thinking, lean methodology, etc., etc. So it's very important to treat data as a product and not to treat data ad hoc or as a project. That changes completely the paradigm and the way of working in an organization. And in emerging markets, many companies are getting on board of this new way of working at this moment, and we will see many more companies doing it in 2023 and the next years. And I believe this is what we are trying to do here, no, Kuntal?
Yes, I believe so, right? I think it really relates to the next trend that we want to talk about as well, Pedro, which is
data ops. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, because data ops actually in product development, right? Data people actually have to work quite a lot with software development as well. And if you talk about data ops, actually data ops take a lot of inspiration from DevOps in software engineer. So the same as a DevOps here, right? So the goal of data ops focus on 2 things: better quality and shorter cycle time. And to achieve that, what do we need? Because data ops, like DevOps right here, actually focus on shorter cycle time, having more product release. So 3 things which are important would be people, process, and tool. First of all, it's people. The people actually, when we look at here, we have to focus on agile mindset, right? So people have to think about continuous delivery. People have to think about, shorten the delivery into smaller release, right? How they can keep up with the product's release life cycle. So the second part of the combination would be the process. So people thinking about agile mindset, then they also have to adopt agile processes and framework, right? you can pick actually that you can pick a lot of processes from DevOps as well. You can pick up Scrum, right? You can do it partially or wholly. Actually, it depends on what you are doing, right? So if you work very closely with software engineers, then it makes sense to actually join them in those processes. And the last part of the combination is the tool itself, right? Like DevOps, it's the tool is enabler. You cannot release new version every 2 weeks if you don't have testing automation, right? If you do everything manually, it's going to be impossible. Deployment tool as well. We are at the point that in data, we can have a very nice tool, right? You can help you manage the deployment, and that make your life easier, and that make actually data of more practical in this time and age. Pedro, do you have anything else to add on data ops here?
Well, I mean, I would like to connect this trend with the first one we talked about, generative AI and the application of AI to every single department of a company, right? So AI is also gonna have implications for data ops, right? So data ops is an organized way of running all the data operations that you require in an analytics department, because there are a lot of things to do. You have to ingest data from different sources. You might need to anonymize it. You might need to create different levels of aggregation of the data. You might need to do the analysis. You might need to refresh the data progressively, periodically. And a lot of that is going to be automated by AI tools. As a matter of fact, there are already AI tools that are using generative AI in order to perform these kind of things. The more you automate those that whole process, the more simple your operations are going to be, right? Now I'm going to go to trend number 5. This is the second last trend that we're going to talk about today, which is synthetic data generation. So what is this? And I'm going to connect it with the previous trend, which is data ops. One of the steps in the chain of operations in an analytics team is getting the data, right? And sometimes you don't have access to the data. When you have to train a complex model, that might require a huge amount of data, and that data might not be available, might just not exist. Something that is possible to do is to create synthetic data that is not real data, but looks like real data. It has all the statistical characteristics of real data. It can be used to train an algorithm, but it's just not actual data, right? Another reason why in many companies sometimes we use synthetic data is because of privacy reasons. I'm going to give you an example. A few weeks ago, here in True, we organized a datathon, a hackathon for data with Thammasat University, and we provided them with data, location data, and how many people are in each location, and what are the characteristics of those people, and what are the websites that they visit in each one of the locations, etc., etc. Well, that data, even if it is aggregated by location, that data is still relatively sensitive. Rather than sharing that data in an aggregate level, what we can do is we can generate synthetic data that has the same statistical characteristics of the data we are talking about, but it's just synthetic. It doesn't exist. It's an example of how it would be. It's a realistic, very realistic example, but it's not real. So that is something that can be done when you have to share data with a third party, like in this case, a university. And if that data is particularly sensitive, you might choose to share synthetic data as well. And the other use case is situations in which you have to train something with data that you just don't have, right? So you can, for example, maybe you have to train an algorithm that identifies certain objects in pictures, and you might just not have enough pictures to train that algorithm, because you might need millions of pictures. So you can generate images synthetically that you can use to train your detection algorithm, right? A few advantages that synthetic data has? Well, number one is because you can customize it, right? You can customize the data. You can modify it according to your needs. Number two is cheaper. It's probably cheaper than getting access to real data. Getting this realistic rate data is much cheaper than getting access to real data. And from a statistical point of view, it's also going to work. It is much quicker to produce. It is much more scalable. It maintains data privacy, as I was saying, because it's not real data, it's just realistic. And also, it improves data quality, and that is very important. Sometimes you have access to a data set, right? And you realize, and there are parameters in the data set, and you realize that a lot of those parameters are missing. Sometimes the numbers are out of range, so you have a percentage that should be between 0 and 100, and for some reason, in some of the numbers are beyond that range of 0 to 100, right? So the numbers are clearly wrong. It's a number that could not exist. Or there are numbers that should be positive and you find them negative. There are wrong values. But by using synthetically generated data, you don't have those problems. So that is something that, particularly when you have to train deep learning models, which is something corporations don't do so much yet, at least in Asia, but are going to start to do it much more. Is something that can become really, really handy. Something else, Kuntam?
No, I think you cover it very well on this topic, Pedro. Thank you very much.
And now we have the last one, Kuntam, which is for you.
Thank you, Pedro. So my last topic I want to cover is data mesh. Data mesh for me is both data architecture and organizational design, right? So a data mesh is basically a decentralized data architecture in a way that it organizes data team and infrastructure by specific business domain. For example, right, if you're talking about marketing, they might also have their own infrastructure for data as well as team. That can go for salespeople and operation as well. And the ownership of data actually stay very close to the producer of the given data set. For example, you have a database and data team for sales and operation, right? And they actually take ownership of the data rather than giving the data ownership to people in data warehouse team or centralized data team. So what is the pros of it then? So the pros actually it make those BUs more agile, right? They have more agile data services, right? Instead of going to a central data team as an operation to try to do some analysis on their very specific numbers in their operations, right? They would actually have their own team who is more specialized, right? They know what the people do in that specific team, do analysis for them, right? So more agile in a sense and also closer to business, right? So if you go to a completely different team, right, they might have expertise on more advanced data analytics, but they might not know exactly what you're doing in day-to-day business. But of course, yeah. Go ahead.
Kuntam, one question. I mean, for people here that are maybe not so involved or so fluent in data, what will be the difference between data mesh and data ops?
Well, a data mesh, right? Actually, for as I mentioned, right, it's actually not just data architecture. It's also had to do with organizational design. So data mesh, if you think about it, right, it's not just how you organize your data team. It's actually how you design your whole organization, right? So if you talk about whether data mesh would fit your organization, is actually come back to the bigger picture of your organization. If your organization is designed in a way which is more centralized, then data mesh might not work for you. Why? Because data mesh would work better if your organization is more decentralized, right? You already have your marketing team, sales team being able to operate on their own, right? They are federated with other organizations, right? But they are more or less standalone, right? Marketing, they can do their own budgeting. They could do their own planning. They could do their own contract. Why not adding data analytics to it?
So then can I say that data mesh is an architecture that suits particularly the needs of larger organizations where you might have small teams of data scientists and data analysts distributed across the whole organization. You have some people in marketing, you have some people in finance, some people in HR that are doing analysis, and all of them need to be working with an infrastructure that is consistent across the teams. Is that a way to say it?
You can say that, Kun Pedro. Actually, for me, it's really come to the fact that when you talk about anything in organization, right, it's centralized or decentralized, or you can have something in the middle, more hybrid, right? So instead of so you could have a very specialized analyst or data expert in the team, but you can also might have a central team, right, for different purpose. For example, more advanced analytics, or very important, for example, data governance, right? So if you imagine you have 10 different data people across organization, but then there's no proper governance or agreement, right? How you manage PAI, then it's also going to be quite a nightmare to manage in terms of data governance.
Very good, very clear. So, well, I mean, just to make a summary of what we have discussed today. So there are 3 trends I brought and 3 trends Kuntam brought. So the trends I brought were, number 1, the arrival of generative AI that is going to change the whole future of work. This includes ChatGPT and many, many, many other tools. The second trend I talked about is data as a product, handling data as it is a product, not as it is a project, or even worse, ad hoc. So becoming more professional in the way organizations are handling data. This is very important, particularly in emerging markets. And the other one I mentioned is synthetic data generation. This is sometimes you just don't have the data. Well, now there are a lot of tools that allow you to create that data in a way that is not real, but is realistic enough for your application. And Kuntam, if you can summarize the 3 you brought?
Sure. I'll start with data clean room, right? Data clean room is the concept that you create a clean room for different parties to share the data. This is more prominent now in digital marketing because of the dying of third-party cookies. And the second trend I brought was data ops, right? So data ops is basically a way that data ops operate to ensure better quality and shorter cycle time. You take heavy inspiration from DevOps here. And the last trend I just talked about was data mesh. Data mesh for me is both data architecture and organizational design that actually put data infrastructure and teams closer to business domains. And as I mentioned, I think it would fit very well if the organization is more decentralized or actually aiming to decentralize their organization.
So thank you very much, Kuntam. I hope these 6 trends have been useful for our audience to understand some of the things that are happening in the application of AI and analytics in the corporate world and the world of business in general. Great to talk to you, Kuntam, and looking forward to have another session maybe with you or with other people in the team talking about any other interesting topic in analytics and AI.
Thank you, Kun Pedro. Very interesting topics today. Thank you.
And there we have it, the 6 highlighted data analytics and AI trends in 2023. Thank you again for joining us today, Kun Pedro and Kun Tham.
Well, thanks to you, Kun Suchada. Thank you also to everyone who has been listening to this podcast, this DataSart podcast today. We're looking forward to having other topics in future podcasts with different people into analytics and topics that can be interesting to our audience. So thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you to you too, Kun Pedro and Kun Kwan, and to all the listeners here. Looking forward to be here again to talk to all listeners.
And thank you for listening to Data Science Podcast. This podcast has been brought to you by the True Analytics team from True Digital Group. Follow us on True Digital Group's YouTube, Blogdit, and search us on Spotify. Just simply search Data Science. ขอบคุณสำหรับการติดตามรับฟัง Data Science Podcast Series ที่จะพาคุณผู้ฟังไปเจาะลึกทุกศาสตร์ของ Data โดยทีม True Analytics จาก True Digital Group ค่ะครั้งหน้าเราจะมาพูดเกี่ยวกับศาสตร์ใดของ Data นั้นคุณผู้ฟังสามารถติดตามเราได้บนช่องทางทั้ง YouTube, Blogdit และ Spotify เพียงค้นหาคำว่า Data ศาสตร์ค่ะสำหรับวันนี้ลาไปก่อนค่ะ See you in the next episode สวัสดีค่ะ
ขอบคุณสำหรับการติดตาม Data ศาสตร์ Podcast โดย True Analytics จาก True Digital Group และพบกันใหม่ในครั้งหน้า Data ศาสตร์